Aurora stood in the hallway outside a glass meeting room, holding a paper coffee cup that had gone lukewarm in her hand. Inside, the overhead lights were warm and yellow. Phones were lifted. 2 cameras blinked little red eyes. Someone in the back barked out a laugh that sounded more like a networking tactic than actual amusement. In the middle of it all stood Miles. Behind him, in clean white letters across the wall screen, were 4 words. "Show them your wings." He was pitching the usual corporate survival guide: hustle culture, personal branding, and making sure everyone knew your name. He moved his hands the way a magician moves them, like the room might miss something if he was not careful. Aurora's phone buzzed against her palm. She glanced down. It was an email from her landlord. The subject line was polite. The number inside was not. $380 more, starting in 45 days when her lease came up for renewal. She looked back at Miles, at the people clapping, at her own thin reflection on the glass, tired, holding cold coffee and a piece of news she didn't know how to carry. She had been telling herself she was a few steps behind Miles. Standing there with the rent email in her hand, she finally got it. She realized they weren't even playing the same game. She was just completely broke. She had 45 days. Either she fixed her life or she packed it. If you had asked anyone in Aurora's life what she actually did, they would have struggled to answer. She was chronically ambitious but clinically incapable of following through. Every financial quarter brought a new, abandoned obsession. In January, she bought a leather planner and posted a photo of its first page. "New Year, New Me" with a small heart emoji. In March, she announced a new chapter. In May, a course on data analytics half-watched. In July, project management certification half-started. By September, the planner sat at the bottom of her bag, full of half-written intentions she'd stopped opening. It wasn't laziness. She would stay late at the office, send emails at 10 at night, redo other people's slides for free. She was good at day 1 of anything. Day 14 was where she always lost herself. Telling people you were about to change felt good. Better than changing. People softened. They got proud of you for nothing yet. For a few hours, you got to test a version of yourself that hadn't done anything, and somehow the world treated you as if you already had. It was a cheap high. She'd coast on the premature congratulations for a day, and by Tuesday, she was back to square one, desperate for another hit of validation. Miles had joined the company 9 months earlier. 29, tall, the kind of person who looked like he'd taken a class on how to enter a room. Soft beige sweaters, a notebook he rarely opened, a smile that knew exactly how long to last. In meetings, Miles spoke in finished sentences. In hallways, he greeted everyone by name. On LinkedIn, he posted screenshots of books he was reading, captions about discipline, photos of his morning runs, taken from such a flattering angle that the city behind him looked like a movie set. One Thursday, by the coffee machine, Miles glanced down at the laptop in Aurora's arms. A job board was open on her screen. She tried to tilt it away. He'd already seen. "You want to move up, right?" he asked almost gently. "Or move out?" She laughed, embarrassed. "Is it that obvious?" "Aurora," he said in the voice of a man who'd rehearsed gentleness, "skills are good. They really are. But visibility is everything now. If leadership doesn't know your name, you don't exist on the payroll. He leaned a little closer. You have to show people your wings before they give you the sky. It didn't feel like a lie. That was the dangerous part. His condescending advice annoyed her, mostly because she knew he was absolutely right. That weekend, she took new headshots in a cafe with too much light. She joined a Slack community of high performers, most of whom never said anything except to share quotes. She wrote a long post about committing fully to her growth journey. It got 52 likes. She refreshed the screen anyway. 3 weeks later, she got an interview at a slightly bigger company. A junior operations role. Better pay. A real ladder. She prepared by writing things she wanted to learn. Things she wanted to become. The kind of person she wanted to be in 2 years. She had 3 pages of notes and a small hopeful sentence at the bottom. I think this could be the one. The interviewer was a woman named Karen, somewhere in her 40s, with a calm face and tired eyes that didn't promise anything. She rambled about where she saw herself in 5 years, leaning heavily on buzzwords to cover up her lack of actual experience. She used the word passionate twice, then tried not to use it again. Karen let her finish. Then she folded her hands. That sounds great, she said gently. Can you show me what you've built? The room went dead quiet. Karen just stared at her, waiting for real proof, and Aurora had nothing to pull up but a half-baked PowerPoint, and they're too kind to push. Aurora opened her laptop. There was a deck she had half-made. A spreadsheet that didn't really do anything. A document that began with the words project plan and ended with 3 bullet points. She closed the laptop quietly. I'm still putting things together, she said. That night, she walked the long way home. On the train, her phone lit up. Miles had posted again. Stop waiting. Start becoming. Hundreds of likes. The cruel thing was, the quote wasn't wrong. It was just being said by someone who hadn't built anything yet either, only louder. A week later, the lining of her one good blazer tore on the subway. Of course it did. The alterations shop on the ground floor of her office building was the kind of place she'd walked past 1,000 times without seeing. A small bell on the door, dresses on hangers, each pinned with a paper number. The smell of warm cotton and old machine oil. Mrs. Alvarez sat behind a wide table, sewing slowly, glasses balanced on her nose. She had buried a husband, raised a son alone, and bought her own apartment 1 quiet year at a time. On the counter sat a small glass box. Inside, 2 thin brown shapes hung from a twig. A school project, Mrs. Alvarez said when Aurora asked. Her granddaughter had brought them in a few days earlier. Aurora leaned closer. It looks dead, she said. It was a joke, mostly. Mrs. Alvarez didn't look up. She kept sewing. How's the rent treating you, my dear? The question landed sideways. Aurora opened her mouth to give the small lie she gave everyone. Then she didn't. Standing there in a shop that smelled like a grandmother's kitchen, you holding a torn blazer, she found herself telling this stranger the whole pathetic truth. The looming rent hike, the bombed interview, the insufferable guy at work, and her own endless cycle of talking a big game while doing absolutely nothing. Mrs. Alvarez just kept pinning the fabric, letting her vent the entire pathetic story. When Aurora finally stopped, the older woman set the needle down and looked at the little glass box on the counter. "That," she said softly, "is how a caterpillar becomes a butterfly. There is no shortcut. It goes into something the world can't see into. It falls apart. Then it comes back out different." She picked up the blazer again. "A caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly by showing everyone tiny wings, sweetheart. It goes into the dark. It becomes something no one can understand for a while. Then one day, the wings aren't an announcement anymore. They're just there." She smiled, gentle. "Right now you think you are just a worm. So build your cocoon. Grow your wings where no one is watching." That night, Aurora didn't post anything. For the first time in years, she opened her notes app, then closed it. She found the leather planner from January, turned to a clean page, and wrote 2 words at the top. Cocoon rules. 1. Don't announce a goal until there is evidence of it. 2. Save 1 hour of pay every single day. 3. Study 90 minutes every night, even if only 20 stick. 4. Don't buy anything just to look like a successful person. 5. Each week, make 1 real thing that can live in a portfolio. 6. When you want applause, go back to the work. She taped the page above her desk. Then she made tea, sat down with a free online course, and did the first lesson properly. It took her 2 hours to understand 20 minutes of material. She wrote down what she'd learned in her own words. She closed her laptop. She went to bed at 10:35. Nothing about the day looked impressive. That was the entire point. She didn't know it yet, but this was day 1 out of 180. The weeks after were quiet in a way Aurora had never let her life be quiet before. When her lease ended the following month, she didn't renew. Sad, she calculated that paying an extra $380 a month on a year-long contract would slowly drain every cent she had left. Instead, she took the upfront hit of moving costs and rented a smaller studio across town to drastically cut her long-term expenses. The new place had a window that looked at a brick wall. She started cooking, badly at first, then well enough rice and lentils and the kind of cheap, honest food her own grandmother used to make. She found a free seat in the public library most nights by the heating vent. She put her phone on Do Not Disturb, shoved it in a drawer, and forced herself to stare at the screen. She dropped off the grid. No more overpriced coffees, no more industry mixers, and strictly no more bragging about upcoming projects. She just put her head down. And the world predictably started to misread her. A friend texted, "Are you okay? You've been so quiet." Miles ran into her by the elevator and tilted his head. "Don't disappear too long. People forget fast." That sentence followed her home. Part of her still wanted to be remembered more than she wanted to be ready. Some nights she lay in bed, staring at her phone, her thumb hovering over the camera icon, drafting captions about her journey she would never post. Each time she rolled over, opened the planner, and read line 6. "When you want applause, go back to the work." She went back to the work. Month 3 was when Miles took off. A post of his went viral on a Tuesday, Something about discipline and waking up at 5. The company offered him a small internal speaking spot. He started running a growth mindset series in the office. People who'd ignored him for years began calling him inspiring. Aurora saw all of it from a library chair on the second floor. She was eating a peanut butter sandwich she had wrapped in foil. Her sweater had a hole near the cuff she kept forgetting to fix. The textbook in front of her had a chapter she'd read 3 times without understanding. That was the night she almost broke. A message arrived from Miles. "Hey, I just pitched an innovation culture initiative to the directors. They love it. I need someone to handle the back-end admin, data tracking, and deck designs. There's no budget for it yet, but the exposure will be insane. I'll make sure to shout out your name in the all-hands meetings." Her stomach dropped. Exposure was just a polite corporate word for doing his grunt work for free. She could see exactly how it would go. A few months of doing the actual heavy lifting while he presented the results. A taste again of being looked at. She typed back slowly. "What exactly is the operational goal of the initiative?" Miles wrote back a long, beautiful paragraph full of corporate buzzwords. Synergy, mindset alignment, cross-departmental community building. Aurora read it twice. She finally let herself see something she'd been refusing to see for months. There was no actionable plan, no real metrics, no actual thing. Just a stage with no play on it. She wrote back, "I'll pass for now. Good luck, though." She put down the phone. Her hand was shaking. Not from fear. From the strange, terrible feeling of finally choosing the harder road on purpose. A cocoon isn't romantic. Nobody tells you that. From the outside, it looks like patience. From the inside, it feels like vanishing. Aurora lost the version of herself who always had something exciting to say. At the few parties she couldn't avoid, she had nothing to brag about. No new beginning to announce. She was, on paper, the most boring she'd ever been. In month 4, she failed a certification exam by 4 points. The same evening, she watched a clip of Miles on a small stage, smiling under warm yellow lights, saying, "Wings are built by people brave enough to be seen." That night, she nearly broke the rules. She sat on the floor of her studio with her laptop open and started typing a long tear-stained post. About how hard she'd been working. About how nobody saw it. About how she needed people to know. Her thumb hovered over the share button. She looked up at the wall. When you want applause, go back to the work. She deleted the post line by line. Then she opened her study notes. She wasn't brave that night. Her stomach hurt. Her ears were ringing. She just didn't move from the desk until the chapter made sense. In month 5, she stopped trying to learn everything. She leaned into her actual background, administrative and data organization, and decided to master it. She started with small, real projects. Mrs. Alvarez kept her shop's orders in a chaotic pile of paper receipts. Aurora built her a simple, automated tracking system in Excel. A neighbor who ran a small bakery needed a digital inventory checklist. Aurora set it up. Then she took that same focus to her day job. Without announcing it to anyone, She spent her quiet evenings analyzing the company's messiest administrative bottleneck, the weekly vendor reporting process. It was a manual error-prone task that took the team hours every Friday. Aurora built a clean, automated database that cut the processing time down to 20 minutes. She didn't launch it with a presentation. She just quietly deployed it to her team. None of these things would have gone viral on LinkedIn. But each job left behind a functional system, a solved problem and hard data she could point to. At the start of month 6, she applied again for a junior operations role at a small but real company. The interviewer was a man this time. He asked her about her experience. Then he leaned back and said the sentence she'd been waiting half a year to hear without flinching. "Can you show me what you've built?" Aurora opened her laptop. She walked him through the automated system she had built for her current team, showing exactly how many manual hours it saved per week. She showed the operational dashboards she had designed. She even showed the small but flawless tracking system she'd set up for the alterations shop to prove she could scale her logic to different business needs. She dropped the buzzwords. She just opened her laptop and showed him the functioning databases she'd built from scratch. A few weeks after Aurora started her new role, she ran into Miles on the street corner near her old office. Aurora carried a laptop bag and a paper sack of groceries. Miles was still wearing a flawless beige sweater. He was still talking loudly to a colleague about building a movement. Miles hadn't changed at all. He was still enthusiastically selling tickets to a show that didn't exist. He stopped when he saw her. "So," he said, flashing that same rehearsed, careful smile, "what have you been doing all this time? You completely disappeared." She thought about it. About the library. About Mrs. Alvarez's tracker. About the night she almost posted. About the rent that no longer scared her. "Growing things I didn't know how to show yet," she said. The pedestrian light turned green. She stepped off the curb, leaving him on the corner. The new job didn't make her rich. Her apartment was still small. The window still looked at the same brick wall. She still cooked rice and lentils most nights, because she liked them now. She had a tiny emergency fund, 3 months of rent, no more, and the strange new feeling of not waking up afraid every Monday. On a Saturday in early spring, she stopped by the alterations shop to drop off a sweater. The original cocoons were long gone. On the counter sat a new glass box, brought in by Mrs. Alvarez's granddaughter only a few weeks earlier. Inside, a single thin brown shape hung from a fresh twig, another cycle already beginning. Mrs. Alvarez smiled at her over the rim of her glasses. "Are you going to post about the new job?" she asked. Aurora reached into her pocket, touched her phone, took it out, looked at the dark screen for a moment. Then she put it back. "Maybe later," she said. She realized she didn't care if anyone knew. The exhausting compulsion to perform for an audience was finally gone. A caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly by convincing the garden it has wings. It vanishes for a while. It comes apart inside something nobody can open. It doesn't explain itself. And when the wings finally come, it doesn't need to announce them. The flying is enough. If you are building something right now, the only honest question is whether the wings you keep showing people are actually finished or whether you are still selling a draft.